As I was reading this week, I came across a woman that I thought I should tell you all about. The 18th century frontierswoman that you wouldn't mess with. Nancy Morgan Hart. It's just her 6 foot tall, red hair and a survivor of smallpox with the scars to prove it. Nancy was an inspiration in her own day and a legend to generations to come. Living on the Georgia frontier, Nancy was naturally made of tougher stuff than we are today. Severe weather conditions, dangerous wildlife and marathon running where Cherokee neighbours made Nancy the formidable warrior that she was. Nancy was a fierce character, and in her day the local Cherokees christened her Wahatche, meaning the war woman. And as if life in general just wasn't hard enough, in them days the Revolutionary War would come to Nancy's door. Staunch patriots, Nancy's family furiously fought against the Tories, British regulars and loyalists in the area, her husband joining the local militia to do his bit. It is said Nancy acted as a spy during the war, dressing up and acting like a simple-minded man. She would enter British camps and gain intelligence that could later be used by the Patriot forces. She is also said to have been a sniper, constantly harassing British forces that happened to come within range or a Kentucky long rifle. Nancy is also reported to have been an active participant in the Battle of Kettle Creek, which by the way was a battle chock full of Scots-Irish folk. Andrew Pickens, the Presbyterian leader of the Patriots that day, is a case in point. Hart was said to have feisty personal demeanour, characterised by a hot-headed temper, a fearless spirit and a taste for exacting vengeance on anybody who offended her or harmed her family and friends. Nancy had become a real thorn in the side of the British and their allies, and because of this she was described by them and characterised by them as being ugly, gangly and even that she had skeleton. But being a sniper, that just couldn't have been the case. As if all of the above isn't enough to paint a clear picture of the Nancy girl, her legend grows and perhaps the most famous episode in her whole life. The story's told, or the legend is told, that one day Nancy and her daughter were in the house on their own, and 6 British troops or British loyalists appeared at the door and demanded at gunpoint that Nancy make them their supper and give them something to drink. So Nancy brings them in, they shoot her last wee turkey, which she wasn't too happy about. Nancy makes them their tea, and as she's doing so, she starts moving the rifles that they'd set at the door when they entered the house outside and put them out of reach of the British troops. And as they're fogging and eating their grub, she sends the daughter down to the creek to signal to the militia that their enemy is in the area. So the troops are enjoying themselves, knocking the turkey in them, probably a win of spuds, drinking whiskey and wine, spirits are up, and they didn't notice that Nancy has a plan in play. But as she's putting the last of the rifles out the door out of range of the soldiers, one of them notices what she's doing and jumps up, and as he does, Nancy pulls the trigger, blows him away. That's yin done, 5 more to go. Another one races to the door to try and get the rifles that Nancy had been putting out. Nancy puts a bullet in him too. That's 2 done, 4 to go. And as she's standing with the rest of them as prisoners, her husband and the rest of the militia arrive and they tie the soldiers up and they attack among themselves and they want to take them out and execute them. They want to shoot them because of what they'd done to a local militia leader, John Dully, who was also actually an Ulster-Scot. So Nancy thinks shooting's too good for these boys and she insists instead that they hang them for her orchard. Now, years after the war, and when Nancy was long dead, a lot of folk thought that this here story was just an old legend, an old myth to build this picture of this fierce frontierswoman, Nancy Hart. In 1912, there was a railroad being built near Nancy's old cabin, and as they're digging up the ground to level it or to lay tracks down or whatever they were doing, they came across 6 bodies neatly buried all in a row. 4 of them with their necks broke and the other 2 with bullet holes in them. So it wasn't a legend at all, it wasn't a myth at all. The story of Nancy and them troops in her house was legit. So After a while, Nancy's husband dies after the war. They move away. Nancy becomes a devout Christian, and it is said over in her later life that she fought the devil just as manly as she had fought the British troops in her day. And Nancy became a bit of a legend in Georgia, and that can be seen for the fact that Hart County in Georgia is the only county in the whole state that's named after a woman, and it's named Hart County after our Nancy. During the Civil War then, there was a group of women in LaGrange, Georgia, who founded a militia company which they named the Nancy Harts to defend the town for the Union Army, while most of the men were away fighting for the Confederacy. There's a lake named after her, Lake Hartwell. There's a dam named after her, Hartwell Dam. And there's Hart State Park and Nancy Hart Highway to commemorate this legendary woman. Now you might want to be asking yourself, well, what are you talking about this woman for on an Ulster-Scots page on Facebook? Well, the fact is that Nancy's family on her ma's side, the Alexanders, all came from Rathfoe, County Donegal. And like many Ulster-Scots, they settled out in the frontiers and made a name for themselves and made for a life for themselves out there. So that's the story of Wahatche, the war woman, Nancy Morgan Hart. There's one sure thing, how Nancy would put the nonsense clean out of ye, that's for sure. A great woman and a great story that she is.